welcome for the very first time to the Beyond Blues podcast. My name is Zach Ancilla. I'm here with Beck Markarian. So with this podcast, with this being episode one, we'd really like to give you guys a little bit of a intro on what we're looking to do here. So basically, like the intent behind this podcast, we're two big Blues fans, and just from years of knowing each other and going back and forth about the team, we just thought it'd be a great way to speak our minds a little bit on the state of the team. And obviously, things haven't been going too great this season, but yeah, we're really excited about this. Beck, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll follow up behind you.
Yeah, so I'm Beck Markarian. As Zach said, senior at Miami University. I play hockey here for club hockey team. I guess we can get into the specifics, right? So I'm a biology pre-dental major, and throughout my whole life, I've played hockey in the St. Louis area and went to Chaminade, a staple in the to mention your high school if you're from St. Louis for sure.
Mhm.
I've been a Blues fan since really day one. My dad was a big fan growing up, and he didn't start playing hockey till he was 15, but he really wanted me to get a head start on it. So lucky to have him and my family take me to a bunch of practice games from the beginning.
Yeah, so following Beck up, Zach Kinsella, like Beck, I'm also a senior down at the University of Tampa where I'm studying marketing. In addition to my education, I also work as a graphic designer for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then I also grew up in the St. Louis area. Got to mention the high school, so I was a Westminster grad. Didn't play hockey growing up, organized hockey at least. Always been a huge hockey fan. Grew up playing hockey, roller, street hockey, all that. But yeah, never. I was a soccer player whole life, but hockey was always super important to me. And unlike Beck, nobody in my family has any hockey background. My dad wasn't a fan growing up, and so yeah, I was kind of the first person to kind of sparked that interest. And since me getting into the Blues when I was little, my whole family's kind of followed up. So I think I started going to games when I was in like third grade. My dad got tickets from work one time, and just kind of after that, I just fell in love with the Blues. And even though I was kind of falling in love with them, not at the greatest time, kind of like the 2008 season when we were kind of just coming out of being bad, and kind of grew up with that Backus, Steen, Oshie era of the Blues, like Beck. And so, yeah, ever since then, just been a huge fan. And so, yeah, we're really excited to get this thing going. So for this podcast, you're going to be able to find us on YouTube. In addition to that, we're also going to be uploading this on Spotify as well as Apple Music. So yeah, we're available on all streaming platforms. And for our recording, we're going to try to get together. We'll say once a week for now. We don't want to overshoot it or undershoot it, but yeah, it's just kind of when we feel like there's something to talk about. And with the way things are going this season, it seems like there's going to be no shortage of topics. So, Beck, I'm going to start us off here. I feel like
Yeah.
we should get into the biggest thing that has occurred in this week with the Tarasenko trade. So, let's break that down. The saga is finally over. Vladimir Tarasenko is now a member of the New York Rangers, as well as Nico Mikkola. So let's get into this. So
Yeah.
what are your initial thoughts here?
So I think it's actually a great trade for both teams. I think Vladdy just this year has gotten pretty unlucky with him, being injured and stuff like that. Just the team around him wasn't too good. So for him to be able to play with one of his best friends in Panarin, I think that'll be a good spark for them and us getting the return we got. I think it's actually a great deal for both sides personally.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, we all know how this season's just been terrible. And I mean, Vladdy wasn't having a good year. Nobody really on the team was. I mean, maybe think of Kyra was having at least kind of a good year. But yeah, definitely glad to get him out of there. And, I just feel like this new motivation for him. I mean, especially playing alongside Panarin. And then in addition to that, just like the team that they have. I mean, top six is really good, but at the same time, I mean, I was looking at the roster. I watched the whole game um, last night, and I don't know if you had seen any of the highlights. They were flying. I mean, Seattle's a good team this year, so I mean, they're not a pushover. Like that wasn't just like a game that you're playing against like a Chicago or Arizona. Like they're the real deal, and they were giving it to them. I mean, first shift. I mean, they were really
Yeah.
fast, and I was impressed. So.
Yeah, seeing
Um,
him score that first goal last night, that was pretty nice to see as a Vladdy fan, but still
yeah.
kind of sucks. I didn't know how to feel that day. Happy we got the return, but also kind of sucks seeing probably one of my favorite players growing up
Yeah,
leave. So
absolutely. So I know you were rather critical. I saw your tweet the other day, rather critical after he signed that contract. I know both of
yeah,
us had been big Vladdy fans because that was kind of like our guy. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, us coming out of or growing up in that Bacchus-Steen Oshie era, when they were transitioning from that early 2000s to starting to get good, picking up guys like that, and those guys had started to develop the core there, and then add Tarasenko 2013. That was kind of like our guy that we grew up with. That was our first like natural born goal scorer that I think the Blues had seen since. I mean, I know Brad Boyce had a crazy season in like the early 2000s, but like we haven't seen a guy like Tarasenko since Brett Hull, and we weren't around for that. So
yeah,
Tarasenko for guys our age and Blues fans our age, like that was it. So I mean, definitely tough. But I know you mentioned the return, so let's get into the return here. So coming back to St. Louis is former Blue Sammy Blais. Blues also get Hunter Skinner, a conditional 2023 first round pick, and a conditional 2024 fourth. And then according to Cap Friendly, the condition on that first round pick is that it'll be the later of New York's two first rounders, as they also own Dallas's first round pick from an earlier trade. So yeah, let's break this down. We'll come back to Sammy Blay later. So
yeah.
I want to go into Hunter
So
Skinner. So yeah, I don't know if you've
yeah,
done a little research, but yeah, what are your
I
thoughts on this Hunter
I looked
Skinner?
at him a little bit. So first thing I'll start off with is this is a return we got for a guy who wasn't going to stay with us no matter what. So it's definitely not as much as we probably could have gotten him, maybe if he had a year left or something like that. But I think Hunter Skinner will probably be like a depth defenseman type role. And I mean, I looked on Elite Prospects just quickly, and it said he didn't really have NHL footwork or NHL caliber footwork. Um, that can change one day, but I did see that he played in the World Juniors in 2021. Didn't play every game, played one game, but doesn't look like he's an offensive guy. Looks more defensive, which I mean the Blues really need. So maybe he could work out here, but he's starting Springfield. If he really starts to turn it on or something like that, then maybe we can see him. But I wouldn't get my hopes up too much with him.
Yeah, definitely a guy that I kind of saw kind of fits the bill of the guy like Dmitry Samorukov, who we got over in the Klim Kostin, not in the Klim Kostin deal, or maybe, was that a trade? I can't remember. Was that a Klim Kostin
That's a
trade?
trade. Yeah.
So yeah, reminds me of
Yeah.
the how we got him. So for anybody unfamiliar, Hunter Skinner, 21-year-old, 6'2" right shot defenseman. As Beck was mentioning, played in World Juniors. He had some real promise early in his junior career. However, he's just not managed to make that jump yet. This season, he's actually played more games in the ECHL with the Jacksonville Icemen than he had played with the Hartford Wolfpack, New York Rangers AHL affiliates. So don't really like to hear that. But yeah, I mean, for a guy that wasn't coming back, I mean, it's good to get him back. I know yesterday or 2 days ago, Beck and I joked about hoping to get Zach Jones. I know that was a guy that highly touted for the Rangers. And I was talking to actually one of my buddies over that hosts the Liberty Blue podcast and New York Rangers podcast. Check them out if you have the chance. Andrew Chelney, I was talking to him the night of the trade, and I was like, yeah, like me and my buddy, like we would have loved to see Jones. He's like, yeah, that guy's not going anywhere. And I asked him a little bit about anything that he'd known with Skinner. And he's like, yeah, like I'm gonna be honest, like I don't think you guys are getting anything in the recent or kind of to be excited about right now. And maybe, I mean, he's only 21. We know how defensemen take a little longer to develop, and maybe we just need those guys in the pipeline for defensemen. So for a guy not come back, I'm pretty happy with it. But let's get into Sammy Blais. So let's get into him being back with the Blues. So first, let's recap his time with New York Rangers. I don't think bad is even a good enough way to put it. It was downright
Yeah.
terrible. Terrible time with the Rangers. So he had 9 points over 54 games with the Rangers, all assists. And he had spent some time in the AHL. However, it was when he tore his ACL in November in 2021 against New Jersey that everything kind of seemed to spiral, and it's kind of just been an uphill climb since then. Missed the remaining 2021-2022 season. Um, so yeah, what are your thoughts on having Sammy Blais back in a Blues uniform?
Yeah, so if I was kind of surprised to hear initially that we got him back, but it kind of makes sense for us. Blake just being more skilled but physical player. We will probably lose that in Barbashev, so we need a guy coming back to kind of bring the physicality back. And we've seen, at least in a couple preseason games, he has some skill. He scored a nice goal against Columbus. Uh, like I think in 2019 or 2019's preseason. So I think he could get his confidence back. I'm sure his stint with the Blues will be a lot better than what it was with the Rangers. I mean, fans, teammates love him. I think I'm kind of excited to see him actually. I was kind of surprised to hear about everything, but I think uh I think he'll do well with the Blues again, especially if he can get some more ice time than what he did last time he was with us. No
Yeah,
doubt.
good point. And yeah, I just think, I mean, things went from bad to worse, and I mean, players say they don't look into stuff with social media and all that, but I mean, Sammy Blais, just anybody on Twitter, anybody on social media could see that just Rangers fans are piling on him. And I mean, assuming that he saw it, which he probably did, I mean, that stuff wears on the guy. I mean, not only are you having just injury issues, and then you got the stuff with the fans. I mean, I do think him coming back here is just going to be good. He got that weight off his shoulders. Like, he knows the fans here loved him. And it's just, yeah, it's just a fresh start. I mean, we've seen how well guys do with fresh starts. I think Berube knows him. Definitely going to give him, I mean, he's going to be playing with some good guys tonight. I mean, I think he's playing with, let me check here. He's playing with Barbashev and Achari. Those are two energy guys he's going to build off of. Barbashev, previous chemistry with him just from knowing him. And I think that's going to be a really solid line tonight. And yeah, like you said, with Barbashev leaving, I mean, we know he's probably gone. Yeah, younger type player, but provides a similar type of game. Maybe we can see some scoring upside. I mean, you know, Barbashev kind of had an outlier year last year, but yeah, I'm definitely excited to get him back in the trade. I don't know what my expectations really are for him. I mean, I'm just kind of happy that we got a guy that's ready to play right now. Especially kind of the way that this roster is going. It's nice to at least get back some NHL caliber like talent like that. So yeah, I mean, I feel good about it. But yeah, other than that, there's really we've known how kind of things have gone recently with him. So if anything, I don't really have any expectations. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think just being under the bright lights in New York, I mean, it's tougher. Like you said, it's tough for a guy seeing the hate that he got. So hopefully in St. Louis, where he knows like where the fans love him and stuff like that, maybe he can just not really be as or not be maybe as scared or not as confident in his game. And hopefully Berube and just the team in general will let him do more things that the Rangers probably wouldn't let him do skill wise or stuff like that as well. So
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I'm
definitely.
excited to see him. I don't know what to expect. I mean, maybe in an 82 game season, hopefully he can put up some close to 40, maybe 50 points. That would be ideal, but I think he could probably be like 35 to 45 point range next year if given like top 9 minutes.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with that. I mean, I definitely think um top nine player. I mean, I could definitely see him. probably sliding down in the fourth line if things kind of get ugly. I
Mhm.
mean, I've been impressed with Toropchenko before the All-Star break. I thought his game's really coming on. I think that shoulder injury is kind of behind him, and Berube's really liking what he's seeing. I mean, just what I've been reading from just Jeremy Rutherford and just like post-game quotes. I mean, I think if anything, we could see Toropchenko slide into a top 9 spot. I mean, he's played there a couple times this season. That fourth line was kind of cooking. I know the Blues, I mean, before the All-Star break had some rough games, but they've kind of been a bright spot. So yeah, I mean, Blay, probably a top 9 player, but I mean, if he could slide down there, which he probably will at some point, I think that could do good
Yeah,
things for those two guys in Alexandrov and Pitlick. So that could be a good line. But yeah. All right. I
yeah,
wanted to transition us into talk about these guys remaining after the first domino has fallen with Tarasenko. Let's get into predicting where we think, or if anybody, who we think goes where. So Ivan
yeah.
Barbashev.
I think Barbie goes first. I think a team will probably want to. I don't know when he'd go. Probably a few days before the deadline, but I'm hoping for a second round pick for Barbie. I feel like that's kind of a lot this year. Maybe like third, fourth, worst case scenario. But I think teams that know like that skill kind of win these cups nowadays. Like he's a good enough player skill wise to where you could probably fetch a good pick for him. But I think he goes first. You mentioned on our little sheet that the teams interested in him as of right now looks like Vegas, Tampa, Pittsburgh, Calgary, and Boston. Um, I think those are some pretty solid contenders that would give up a good amount for him. And even like I'm sure he'd sign with whoever he gets traded to. So I think he'll probably be the one who goes first because who doesn't want a former 50-point guy uh, with him getting 50 last year and who can grind, won a cup, just a bunch of aspects in his game that I think teams are looking for, especially come playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, especially with that cap hit right now, I mean,
Mhm.
that's super attractive to almost all those teams or anybody that's kind of seeing themselves as a contender. Can you give me a prediction? Where are you thinking he goes?
Um, I'm thinking either Pittsburgh or Vegas, I'd say.
Okay.
I'd
Okay.
probably go those two.
And then
Yeah,
talking about
maybe one East, one
returns.
West.
Yeah.
Returns, if we're getting a decent prospect, probably like a fifth in that prospect. If you're just getting a pick, probably second and then a late round pick. That's probably my thing with him. I think second late round for if you're not getting the guy back.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, an interesting little thing about Barbashev. So as I mentioned earlier, to you guys, so working with the Lightning, we do get a little kind of behind the scenes look at some of the stuff that goes on with the front office. So we had a all staff meeting about 4 days ago where Brisebois came in and kind of talked to the employees, and us employees get to kind of ask him what the direction of the team is going into the trade deadline, which is cool. And uh, everybody's kind of throwing around some names, and he's not giving yes or no's. And he's kind of just giving maybes. I remember at the time last year, we were kind of asking him what the plan was, and he's like, "Yeah, like we're not doing anything. Like we're standing pat." And of course, they go out and acquire Nick Paul, and they acquire Brandon Hagel, make some kind of big moves like that. And so it's kind of he was pretty tight-lipped again this year. However, he name dropped Ivan Barbashev as a potential player for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is a little interesting. Not he didn't say Ivan Barbashev that is he's Tampa, but he used Ivan Barbashev type player. He said for anybody out there that knows, the kind of player that we're looking at this trade deadline is an Ivan Barbashev type player. I was smiling in the back. That was pretty cool to hear about. So,
Yeah, him
I
and
mean,
Maroon
I've been,
coming back.
yeah, I mean, I think Ivan Barbashev, I mean, being a Tampa fan and just following the team very closely, definitely what we need. Our bottom nine is solid. However, our biggest problem, and I mean, Blues fans are very familiar with Pat Maroon. Our biggest problem right now is Maroon is playing on the third line with Ross Colton and Nick Paul, and that's a highly skilled, very, very quick line. Two guys that have a ton of energy, very fast off the puck, and we know what Maroon does. Holds the puck down low and kind of lets the other two guys do their thing, but it's it's not ideal having Maroon on your third line, especially for a team like the Lightning that's so skilled. I mean, luckily in the past two or three cup runs, we've had Maroon on the fourth line, and that's back when we still had Palat. So guys like Killorn can slide down and play that third line. However, with losing Palat, it's kind of exposed some spots, and definitely one that we need is somebody on the third line. Yeah, we can allow Ross Colton to play the wing, which he prefers, and I know Barbie can play the center position, which would be great. So I think not just based on what I heard in that meeting, but I really do think Barbashev goes to the Lightning. I think a name that floats around often in kind of the Lightning's fandom of somebody that they'd like to see leave the team is Nemesnikov. I can tell Blues fans not really somebody that would be too exciting to get back. And I mean, he really doesn't do a lot of great things. I mean, it would be a good guy to have. I mean, I guess he can play top six. I mean, he can play the bottom six, definitely better in the bottom six. We could potentially get him back in a trade. But definitely I think a second would be ideal. But yeah, so if we did see Barbashev go to Tampa, maybe Novoselikov's a guy that we see go the other way. So that's who I'm predicting for Barbashev. Let's slide into Noel Acciari. Where do you think Noel Acciari is going?
Yeah, so I think if Armstrong wants to select, because it's here 1 year. I didn't look
Yeah,
at that.
Acciari's on a 1 year.
He's done after this year. Okay, so if Armstrong isn't going to sign him, I think he's 100% getting traded. But I think if Army thinks that he's part of the future in a sense, because I've liked his game. He's been with Florida, he can score, but if we're like, okay, let's just get a pick or something, then I think we could probably get third or fourth for him. I don't mind his game. It's okay. Like he's just a pretty solid third line scorer. I think we could probably we might utilize him if we're in the playoffs, but since we're not, and we might take next year as maybe a quick retool year to let the youth kind of uh get their reps in a sense, then I think yeah, we should probably trade him. But I feel like that one's kind of up in the air more between him, Barbie, and Ryan O'Reilly. So I say probably a third would be the max of what he gets. I don't think we would probably get a third from him, but maybe a fourth and a late round pick is another one I'm kind of thinking. I don't really know his value. I'm not a GM, but that's kind of my take on him. Third, probably to a
Yeah.
very desperate team, and then fourth and a late for someone else. So maybe fourth and a sixth, fourth and fifth, maybe. Not too
Mm.
sure.
Yeah, definitely a guy that I can see not being moved kind of in the next like week or two. Definitely a guy that I think if moved, definitely could not be moved, but the type of game that he plays, and as you mentioned, for teams that are winning the cup, I mean, you need guys like that in your bottom six. I have been impressed with him. I think he would do very well for a team. I know some of the rumored teams, Vegas, Pittsburgh, Edmonton. I think he would do really well on any of those teams. But yeah, definitely a guy that I think if he is moved, it's going to be closer to the deadline or on the deadline day, as teams are going to get desperate. And if that's the case, I mean, Armstrong could pull a third. That would be insane. I do still think it's a fourth. But yeah, if
Mhm.
teams get desperate, which I really think Armstrong's going to hold off until then with Achari.
Mhm.
If we got a third, that would be huge. But I think there's other guys out there that kind of bring what he brings. So I don't think his value is extremely high. I'm going to go with the fourth that we get. And then I'm going to say he goes to Vegas. I can kind of see Vegas
Yeah.
getting him. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, the only thing I'm looking at within the last couple of years, he put up 20 goals with Florida in 2019, 2020. So that's my only thing. I think he probably goes to Edmonton is my pick. They just lost Costin to an injury, I believe, if my buddy on who's an Edmonton fan is telling me the truth. But it looks like Costin's gone, so they might need another guy in that bottom six. So I think, I mean, with Achari putting up some good goal totals this year, I think he could be a scoring bottom six guy on Edmonton, and they could get desperate depending on if they didn't get anyone on deadline day. I think Achari will go on deadline day though. I think he'd be a desperate trade. I
Yeah,
don't think Army's really
absolutely.
too pressed on trading him, to be honest.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, from what I hear, I mean, just from reading stuff from like Strickland and Rutherford, I mean, Armstrong makes it sound like Achari's a guy that they would want to keep around. I mean, like you said, I mean, it would make a lot of sense if the Blues were thinking that they would be making the playoffs either this year or next year, but they're not, and so I don't think it makes a ton of sense. But yeah, I do think teams are going to get desperate, and I do like the pick of Edmonton. I think they're a team that's on the cusp of, I mean, I do think they're a contender. I think if their bottom six gets solidified a little more, I like with a guy with Achari, I think that would be huge for them. So yeah, I like Edmonton a lot for them. So that'd be cool. So
Hmm.
let's transition over to the big one, our captain, Ryan O'Reilly. Let's hear your thoughts on Ryan O'Reilly and the possibility of him being moved from the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, so it could be weird having uh, a potential new captain starting next year. You know, the guy who scored the first goal in game seven kind of didn't expect to really give up on him in a sense or trade him a few years later. But I really don't know personally what how to feel about a potential O'Reilly trade. I think he's a guy, you know, won that first cup with us. I it's hard to now, you know, now our captain. It's pretty hard to really imagine it, but I think you kind of have to pull the trigger this year. That contract could be scary too. Like if Army hasn't had a great streak of contracts recently, so besides maybe Kyrie and Thomas, those will be fine. But I think unless he's on a 2 year stint or 2 year extension for maybe 5 mil, I don't really know if we sign him. So I think O'Reilly will be traded on deadline day unless we got just insane offer. Uh, I'm hoping for a first and a very good prospect. Um, if the prospect's like a top five pick within the last couple of years, then maybe a second and third, but you're hoping for a first for him. I think he goes to Leafs for a first and Robertson maybe a late pick too. I That's my prediction. I think I was talking to STL Blues prospects. I we talk every now and then. He thinks that
Same.
that's like a legitimate trade
Love that guy.
that we could. Yeah, he's a great guy. Shout out to him on Instagram. He does his research. He's a good guy. So yeah, I think O'Reilly to Toronto maybe for a first and Nick Robertson and maybe a late pick if he
Okay,
doesn't re-sign. Maybe I'm not
I
too
like
sure.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
how
I'm
about
actually
you?
right there with you. I've had O'Reilly ever since it was rumored to that he might be leaving. I've had him going to Toronto since then, and I just think Toronto, like they just know, like, I mean, you cannot have another first round exit. You just can't. I mean, I don't know how many more years we're gonna keep saying this before they decide to do
Hmm.
something about the core. Um, I think O'Reilly changes that team from being a team that could potentially win a cup to a team that is right up there with the best of the best. I mean, not that they aren't already. I mean, we know like how good that team is, but with O'Reilly's just caliber of winning, like a Conn Smythe winner, Stanley Cup winner, I know his game's fallen off a little bit. Kind of this season has shown that actually a lot. But I think, I mean, if he's playing third line center, which I mean, if
That's
I mean he
insane.
can play second line center too, but like with
Mhm.
how deep the Leafs are at the center position, I mean that if you had a 1, 2, 3 of Matthews, Tavares, O'Reilly, like that's absolutely insane. Um, I don't think
Yeah.
Tampa matches that. I don't think Boston. I don't think anybody in the East matches that. So um, I think he changes the Leafs team immediately. I mean, in talks of a return, Robertson will be great. Definitely, I feel like a guy that's kind of trending downwards on their depth charts just because of the opportunities given and hasn't really taken it. I could see him maybe being moved. I think of another guy, younger. This would be a stretch. This would kind of be like what we thought with the Vladdy deal, where if we could pull a guy like Jones or Brendan Othman from the Rangers, this is a guy that I feel like is an untouchable for Leafs fans. Matthew Nyes.
I
Um,
knew you were going that direction.
I do not think that they would include him. However, that would be awesome. I definitely think that that's off the table, but that's obviously who I would like. But I don't think O'Reilly's value is high enough for that. It would have to be a really desperate move. I like the Robertson pick. You know, I think, like I mentioned, with him kind of trending downwards, I feel like that's a guy they'd be willing to part with.
Mhm.
So yeah, I like that, and I'm gonna go
What
with O'Reilly to the Leafs for
What are
sure.
your thoughts if we can get Nyes? Would you be fine with a second?
You know, I can't give you a great answer on that just because I feel like with how deep this draft is, and but at the same time, Nyes
He's a
is
top
very highly
prospect.
touted. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. He's very
Would you
highly
rather
touted.
have a plus him and Snuggerud? That would
The
be,
Minnesota connection,
yep, that would be nice.
that would
We
be
can get
awesome.
Cooley. We can get a Cooley for a few years from now.
You
Get that
know,
top line back.
just talking like that, I mean, that would be insane. I mean, if we
Yeah.
had Snuggerud and Nyes together, I mean, that would be crazy. I don't know. I mean, now that we have two firsts, I mean, who knows where the Blues could end
Hmm.
up with their own pick from this season. Like, I mean, hopefully we're top 10, which we better be.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
obviously we now have New York's late. Having three in the first would be awesome, but I mean, I'm definitely not going against how talented Matthew Nyes is. So that would
Yeah.
be awesome. I can't give you a definite answer. So I
Yeah.
mean, either one would be great. But
Definitely
O'Reilly
something
to
to think
Toronto,
about for Blues fans for sure. O'Reilly
definitely
Toronto. I
something
think
for
he's
you
a
guys.
Ontario kid, I'm pretty sure too. So just makes sense. And if they don't get out of the first round with that top three center core, they never deserve to get out of it. So
Mhm. Yeah, no,
yeah,
absolutely. I don't know how much longer management's okay with. We're
yeah.
almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. So
Clock's ticking for them. So I think they'll get
absolutely.
I heard on I believe it was Steve Dangle podcast, just a small clip on YouTube. I saw that they want to add a forward and defenseman. So maybe he's the guy. I'm sure he'll probably be the guy if we trade him. So
Yeah.
just adds a completely different dynamic to have that solid defensive forward. So yeah.
A little bit of a technical difficulty. However, we do want to with this Ryan O'Reilly talk. Beck, I want to talk to you about the idea of potentially losing Ryan O'Reilly in the St. Louis Blues, losing another captain in the past 7 years after losing David Backes in the 2016, 2017 free agency. Then we have Alex Petrangelo, 2019 or 2020, 2021, doesn't resign with the Blues. You think of other guys that we've let go for basically nothing. What are your thoughts on the Blues potentially losing their captain and yeah, this narrative that we can't hang on to big parts of our leadership group?
Yeah, it certainly sucks because he's a fan favorite, and I wouldn't mind him, especially in the playoffs. He's a very good player. Like, he's a gamer. He knows where how to play in playoffs. But if we're not expecting to make it, maybe next year, like, we could pull a Sens, just have a bunch of our youth up and not do too hot. But whenever everyone kind of takes their next step, we're a very good team. I think, depending on the direction, especially if you give up Barbie and all these guys, I think O'Reilly needs to go as well. I mean, it sucks. Like, we don't like having this narrative that maybe Army uh, isn't loyal to the guys who did them well or won them a cup, but I think, I mean, rather than O'Reilly leaving us, or maybe going on a really bad deal, maybe like 6 years at a high AAV, I think we just need to pull the trigger on a trade. Teams will get desperate for a guy who won the cup, a solid 200-foot player. I think teams will give up a lot, and I think we just have to take that deal this year. I don't like being that guy in a sense, but I think that, I mean, we've already seen regression from this year. Granted, the whole team has regressed, but I think I think he still has some good years in him, but his bads will be pretty bad, at least point wise. So, and I mean, I think we should give up on O'Reilly at the deadline. It certainly sucks losing your captain, but I think that's Braden C in the future, maybe even Falk. So, um, kind of sad. Don't like thinking about it, but I think that's the right move by Army this year.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I mean, for those that kind of get that narrative of the Blues not hanging on to guys like a Backus or a Petrangelo or Perron, um, this is just different now. Obviously, when those guys had left, it would have made a lot of sense because the Blues were still in their cup window. So for those guys leaving, it was illogical. It really made no sense, and I can understand the fans' frustration. However, this is different. The Blues are now going in a different direction, and it just doesn't make any sense for us to hang on to Ryan O'Reilly, just considering what his value is at this point. I mean, it's just too good to pass up on. I've seen the idea of the Blues maybe doing a Doug Weight, Keith Kachuk early 2000 situation where let him go at the trade deadline, gather assets, and then re-sign him in the offseason for cheaper AAV. I'm okay with that. Um, I'm definitely more on the side where I'd kind of like to see just a new age of the Blues, and kind of as Beck you were just talking about, with kind of us moving into this younger leadership group and just us embracing the youth movement. So yeah, I mean, if that did happen, I mean, that's great. I do think Ryan O'Reilly is still very valuable and could be very valuable to this team. However, I don't see him being brought back. I feel like if he's let go, I just don't see him coming back. I mean, I know he's saying all the right things at morning skate and after the games about wanting to stay and how much he loves St. Louis, which is great. And I just I just don't think it's going to happen, and I'm definitely just ready for this new age of the Blues. So, all right, let's transition now into tonight's game as the Blues take on the Arizona Coyotes. Before we get into that, though, a couple injury updates for the Blues. Ryan O'Reilly, speaking of the devil, returns tonight from a broken foot. He was out for 5 weeks. Pavel Buchnevich returns from an ankle injury, and Robert Thomas returns from a shot that he took in the midsection in that last beatdown against the Arizona Coyotes. So, but also in addition to that, we also got some guys that have been out for a while that are both skating and are expected to return soon, according to Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic. Marco Scandella and Scott Perunovich are supposed to be close. So that is two very interesting names that, as the season's kind of winding down and kind of not been great. I know Blues fans see the name Marcos Candela potentially returning to the lineup, and they're like, "Oh gosh, things are about to get worse." But it's good to see a guy like Scott Perunovich being close. I mean, he's just it's been such a tough go for him. So I'd love to see him get back in the lineup, and it's kind of an intriguing bottom pair for me would be Tyler Tucker and Scott Perunovich. So that could be really cool. Now with the Blues, with Nico Mikkola moving on to the Rangers, them embracing Tyler Tucker in that bottom pair, that could be a really cool bottom pair, which I think would do quite well. But yeah, let's talk about tonight's game. So Sammy Blais will be slotting into that third line with Barbashev and Noel Acciari. What do you make of Sammy Blais slotting in on the third line back?
Oh, I think that's perfect for him. Get his feet wet, back with the Blues lineup, playing more minutes than I'm sure what he got with the Rangers. So I think that line, I mean, that line will definitely hit some bodies tonight. They're skilled. Barbie can put the puck in the net. Same with Achari. And you know how Blade played in the past. He had a nice hit on Lucic, I believe, in that really fun game a few nights ago. So I think Blaze Blade will be a pretty solid add to that line, and to have that Torp, Walker, and Pitlick line, I think that'll be very nice as well. They've looked pretty solid in the past, so especially Torp. So I think Tucker slotting in to the third pair tonight, I think that'll be really nice too, because I kind of wrote a note about him. I think he's a solid player. You don't really notice him too much, which is perfect for a young defenseman. Does the right plays, may not be like a goal scorer or offensive defenseman, but if he can just do his job and not let the other team score too much, then I think that's really all you can ask for him. But I am excited for Blay. I think he should have a nice game tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for that line as well. As we mentioned earlier in the show, two other pretty similar players to Blais, in Barbashev and Achari, kind of that energy, get in on the forecheck and just, yeah, I think that's going to be a really intriguing line for the Blues. Get a little bit of a different look, with Jake Neighbors now being down, in Springfield, bringing up Blais. So yeah, I think that's a nice fit. Would have liked to see Alexandrov still up with the club on that fourth line. That's kind of my preference. I have not been impressed at all with Nathan Walker this season. I just feel like his game is kind of taking a step back from last season. I mean, he had some great moments with the Blues last season, with the opportunities that he was given. But it just seems that this season's kind of been a little bit of a letdown, not only numbers wise, but I mean, it's the whole team numbers wise, hasn't been great. But I've been really impressed with Alexandrov. I think he's been doing a great job. I think it's great for his development to be up here. Like you were mentioning with Tucker, I think he's a guy that kind of quietly does his thing. You don't really notice him too often, which is a good thing. Because I mean, that means he's doing things right. And he's had a couple turnovers here and there, but that's kind of to be expected with him being a young guy. But yeah, I'm excited for this fourth line tonight. I think Porchenko, as I mentioned, his game's really coming on. So yeah, I think going into tonight's game, good rest after the All-Star break, and however, it would be very Blues for have that whole All-Star break and then come out and then just have that same score that we had the last time we played Arizona. So
Yeah,
moving
Arizona
into yeah,
Arizona seems to have our number, especially
yeah.
since that COVID year where we
Oh
played
my
them like
gosh.
7 straight times. That was just horrible to watch.
Connor Garland was a menace
Yeah.
in those
Mhm.
in that COVID season
Yeah.
against the Blues.
Keller too. Keller lights us up. Seems every
Yep.
game.
It,
Yeah.
it it
So
actually seems like I mean, obviously being from St. Louis, he lives to play the Blues, but it's a Stanley Cup final game. I feel like every time we play against
yeah.
Clayton Coward, it
Yeah.
seems like he's always um lighting us up, as you mentioned. But
Yeah.
we're gonna see Sammy Blay on the second unit of the power play. He's going to be on that power play with Falk, O'Reilly, Brandon Saad, and Ivan Barbashev. That is intriguing to me that they're throwing him on the power play kind of already. Obviously he's familiar with a lot of those guys, but based on how his season had gone in New York and just the way he hasn't produced, I think that was an interesting move that we're going to see him tonight. Um, I'm definitely excited. But yeah, I wanted to hear your thoughts on Sammy Blais already making a debut on the power play.
Yeah, I mean, he has the skill. I don't think he'll really miss a beat. Um, I think our power play definitely hasn't been as good this year as it was last year. Missing DP certainly hurts, but I think, why not throw him on there? Just get his reps in, get some touches, and then maybe that'll help him 5-on-5 play for sure. So I think we'll be fine. I think that's a solid PP2. So I think it'll be nice. I'm certainly watching this whole game today, no doubt. But
Yeah, absolutely.
no, I think he'll be fine. I think that'll be a good spot for him, depending on where he is on the PP.
Agreed. All right, let's get into our predictions for the game. You start us off. Who is your pick for player of the game tonight against the Coyotes?
So I don't want to do the safe pick because it's just I think it's fairly obvious with kind of how he's played against the Coyotes in the past. My safe pick would be Kyrou. He always does well, it seems, versus them, but I'm going the returner, Sammy Blais. I think he'll shine just like Tarasenko's first game. I don't know why. I just think that's just how hockey works. So I think Sammy Blais will be maybe not like have the most points, but I think he'll definitely have a chip on his shoulder to kind of prove the Rangers that either he deserved to be there or he's better than what he produced there. So I think Blais will at least get a point. I'm thinking goal is his point. So I'll take Blais on that one.
All right, let's get a score prediction.
5-3 Blues. A little barn burn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
it seems like it's always barn burners when it comes to the Blues and Coyotes. We mentioned him earlier. I'm gonna give a pick from the Coyotes and the Blues. We mentioned him earlier. I think Clayton Keller lives for these games, especially with this game being in St. Louis. I'd assume family's gonna be there, friends. I'm gonna go with him for the Coyotes, and then I am right there with you. I think that that's how hockey works too. I think Sammy Blais, my pick for the Blues. I mean, just the way this last 2 weeks have gone with guys getting moved. I mean, you see Horvat score in his first two games. You see Beauvillier scored today in his, I think, third game with the Canucks and also scored 2 nights ago. You see Tarasenko get his. I think maybe Sammy Blais doesn't get a goal tonight, but I think he does. But I think he's going to be extremely noticeable. I agree. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to feel the love from the fans once he steps on the ice. And yeah, I'm definitely going with Sammy Blais. And then for my score prediction, I'm gonna go 4-1 Blues. But yeah, I definitely think lots of goals are to be expected when it comes to these two getting together. So, and then
Mhm.
yeah, but I'm excited for tonight's game. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Blues come out coming off of a break here. Like we've known the Blues to be, we don't know what to expect, especially after breaks. I know the Lightning have a terrible, terrible record after breaks. They just got smoked, absolutely smoked earlier in the week against Florida, and then had a brutal game against San Jose. So hopefully we can see a good game tonight from the Blues. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. They had a pretty tough loss last night to the Blackhawks too. So maybe, that's kind of expected from this Blues team, especially against Coyotes. Just like a random 83 Oilers or like Gretzky Oilers type game from the Coyotes will somehow happen. But I do think 5-3 Blues unless both goalies stand on their head, which I mean, from seeing both of their defenses this year, I don't think that'll happen, but who knows? So yeah,
Yep.
5-3 Blues, I think. I think we'll get it done tonight, just
All
based off
right.
rest alone. Hopefully you don't jinx that.
All right.
But
I love it. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for you guys today. Appreciate you joining into episode 1 of the Beyond Blues podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, you can find us on all streaming platforms, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. On behalf of myself, Zach Kinsella, and Beck Markarian, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will talk to you guys next time.